And we're live. That's how Joe Rogan starts his podcast. So I thought I would go for the same. So hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. We're relaunching our podcast on our channel. Our channel originally started as a podcast, but then we started doing more news stories, and now we want to bring the podcast form back. So first and foremost, Sam, how are you? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thanks. Not bad, just chilling, reading news and stuff as
And
usual.
introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you? What's your role here?
Oh, I'm Sam, the co-host of a Spar and Brawl uh, news channel. I mean, it's technically not a podcast because it's not been released in audio format yet, but
That's
in a
true.
long format video news discussion, geopolitical discussion, I suppose we can say.
Yeah, okay, so let's get right into it. And I'm Cam Compani, the other co host of Spar and Brawl. So, for this first YouTube podcast that we're bringing back, here's just a quick outline. First, we're going to start with a few small news stories, including Turkey US relations and the sanctions imposed on Turkey, and the whole Jimmy Dore, Medicare,
For
AOC, all of that whole thing. Start with that, and then we're going to talk about some of the news channels, the progressive news channels, especially on YouTube and other places that we like to follow and where we get our stories. And then we'll wrap up with a little conversation about the future of this channel and how we see it. But okay, Sam, do you want to get us started with the whole Jimmy Dore AOC Twitter beef?
Sure. That was an interesting news story to me. Anyway, it's not covered by most, I suppose, mainstream news stories, mainstream news channels or news organizations. Sorry. Well, anyway, it's Democrats are expected to keep the House, I suppose, when all the votes are finalized and approved and blah blah blah, and they are soon going to have a vote on the Speaker. And Nancy Pelosi hasn't been challenged by anybody, so she's very much expected to win. And now the what was referred to before as the squad, which was about, I believe, four congresswomen, if I'm not mistaken, now has expanded. I think the people who are considered hardcore left wingers or progressives within the Democratic Party within the Congress are amount to around 9 or 10, with Cory Bush and another person from that type of politics winning seats to the U.S. Congress. So Jimmy Dore, who's a news host, who we will be talking about specifically later on, he was a comedian. He's more recently moved to becoming covering news in a somewhat comedic and angry fashion, I suppose. And he suggested that these people should withhold their votes for Nancy Pelosi's leadership, and apparently due to the fact that Democrats actually lost seats in this election, even though they do get to keep the House, they lost seats relative to compared to before. So he suggested that they should withhold their votes and demand the vote for Medicare for all. And this went, I mean, Jimmy Dore is largely ignored by politicians. AOC ignoring him is somewhat unjustified, considering that I believe Jimmy Dore was the first person to have her on his in his channel, like a relatively big give. It was her first big coverage that she got, so it's a bit, I feel, unfair that, but she basically ignored him. Then a famous American football player who plays for LA Chargers. I don't know anything about football, so forgive me if I get something wrong. Called Justin Jackson tweeted his support for the idea, and then I believe tagged or uh, directly referred to AOC in that tweet. This led to a response from her that this actually is this idea hasn't been thought through. What about the next step? We don't have enough votes, which, from what I understand, none of her arguments are correct. But I haven't really checked them out fully myself. But from the commentaries I heard from Kyle Klinsky, and I read on the Hill, and I read on a couple of articles on Katie Halper show. I believe she's somewhat confiscating, so to speak. She's trying to avoid the real demand, and there has been a basically since then there has been a furious backlash from the hard left. At the same time, a lot of people uh, attacking Jimmy Dore and others, saying that you're demanding too much from her and this is not the right time. She shouldn't pick fights, or she's just. I'm to be honest, I've been following the camp that is pro Jimmy Dore more. I mean, full disclosure. Um, there was a very interesting debate on Katie Alper show between David Soroto and Matt Stoller. Interestingly, Matt Stoller was suggesting that even this is a gimmick, and they should. I mean, this is what I got from it. Was a very long debate. I suggest everybody go see it for themselves. But he was saying all of this is a gimmick, and they should even demand something more concrete, like, for example, estates allowing states to expand their Medicare programs according to their needs. It's very, very specific policies rather than just a vote that will definitely be, even if they win the vote in Senate, it will be voted down, so it has no chance of passing, basically. So that's the rundown of the story. Basically, Jimmy Dore suggested the idea that they should withhold their votes from Nancy Pelosi's leadership unless they get a vote. They get a vote for Medicare for all to see who's really for Medicare for all. AOC's, it seems she's trying to avoid doing that. Although she has apparently given a very detailed interview to Jeremy Scahill, who's a famous journalist on Intercept. So I haven't heard that interview yet. So maybe, when I do listen to that, I'll definitely get back to you. I don't know. What's your view so far on the issue? I don't know if you heard about it or not.
Yeah, no, I saw a little bit about it, and I have one point to maybe defend both sides. Well, not really AOC. But yeah, at first I found funny how when you were describing Jimmy Dore, you're like he's a comedian, sometimes angry. He
Uh,
was really angry in the beginning of the pandemic, and when what's his name, Bernie Sanders, like lost, he was super angry for a period.
Everybody sees through you. Everybody sees through you, except your fucking sycophant DSA dickheads in fucking Brooklyn.
it's just too much shouting and
Yeah.
name, and he's justified. His arguments are largely correct. I think it's just I can't handle that much. I'm a bit of a. It's just it gets a bit annoying to me. To me anyway.
Know what you mean. But okay, returning back to this topic. So a few things. First, I found one thing to be really disappointing by AOC. I mean, this is probably the most disappointing thing I've heard from her. She's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go for something more realistic and blah blah blah, such as the $15 vote, a $15 an hour vote,
But
right?
that's already passed.
Exactly. I mean, that was in her tweet, and so that's one of the main
And
things that
yeah,
is right.
I
She
think
tweeted that, right? I'm not making it up.
no, Jimmy
Yeah.
Dore made a video yesterday actually referring to that fact and saying that yes, since she has realized that it's common knowledge that that has already been passed, she has sort of avoided talking about it again.
Yeah, okay, that was super. That was really
That
ridiculous.
was
I'm
a
glad at
yeah.
least she realized, but okay.
I
But
mean,
then,
as a politician, that was really
yeah,
amateur.
yeah.
Like,
And then, I think with Jimmy Dore, so, Katie Halper, I guess his guest is right. You can't just go for a vote on Medicare like that. I mean, that's probably like the biggest Hail Mary the left could ever achieve in the United States internally. One of the biggest
no,
would be,
he wasn't saying it was a Hail Mary, so to speak. He was saying that even this is all a gimmick.
mhm.
This is all people just. He was saying this is just all people
Yeah.
doing shit to
But I
make
mean, I think
themselves
it's not
feel
Jimmy
radical.
Dore's responsibility to give like the most specific strategy. I think his
Exactly.
idea was more like, go after this, use this issue right now to get something out of Nancy Pelosi. I think that's what he kind of meant. I mean, he's not going to
And
break
to
it
be
down
honest,
into. I think that's what he kind
yeah,
of meant. So that's the
I
only
mean,
thing that I would say against, like,
No, and I would, especially when you know that even if the bill passes, the Senate is gonna. So it's just symbolic. It's completely
Yeah.
symbolic, even if it passes the House.
But I think his
And
main point is, just or just hold something against her, try to get something out of her and something that is
but
worthwhile. Of course, not something that's already passed and that the Biden administration also supports. So I mean,
yeah, exactly. And what do you say to people that are saying that it may not be a strategic move? Then it means that Pelosi is going to hate them for the next whatever, for the next 2 years or however long. I mean, it seems forever she's going to be the speaker. But anyway, or what do you think of the strategy as a whole? So basically, Dore, as always, is suggesting a more aggressive, I
confrontational.
suppose.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's always the question when it comes to anything, right? So what? Should she try to be her friend and let's say work from the inside? And you can always say if she's going to be friends with you, that means you're going to start supporting, leaning more towards her, rather than you trying to bring her more towards you. There's a much higher chance that if you want to suck up, you're going to have to go more towards her. So that strategy also doesn't mean, but I mean, they have totally opposite views in a way about a lot of things. So you have to be confrontational to a certain,
No,
I mean,
yeah, I'm on the camp that, to be honest, she already hates you, and she's
yeah.
already doing everything she can to destroy
You could make her
your
like
feeling of.
you. It's easy to make her like you, but then you have to move towards her position and support her, and then I'm sure she'll like you if you start
No,
doing her
no.
bidding.
The thing is, though, like they don't concede shit. Like she did last year and stuff. She was like, she's mama bear or
Yeah,
whatever. And she's a good leader. She has made like, she's a strong opposition figure against Trump and blah blah blah. But still, Pelosi didn't like. She didn't give the slightless. Um, I don't know, a slightless. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
she hasn't conceded shit. So yeah, I
exactly.
don't see even strategically. Let's put aside the fact that we agree with Medicare for all or we don't. Even strategically, I think she's making a mistake somewhat. I mean, it depends on what exactly is her goal in her career. To be honest,
Yeah.
So who knows?
And it
But
is
yeah,
hard to, and another argument that I accept, I guess this is what Bernie Sanders used to say, this on a personal level, but it's hard to, be mean to people 24/7 and say bad stuff when they're technically your colleagues and you're always face to face with them and you have to be with them all the time.
but it's not like
But yeah, it's kind of their job at the same time, but even though
it's
they're in
none
the
of their
same
job.
party.
And it's not like they meet, it's not like an office where she's the office manager.
Yeah,
They have different offices. Each congressperson, they have to visit their constituents. It's not
yeah,
like they see each other 24/7.
yeah.
You there are meetings and then there are communication. So I don't, yeah,
But
there are excuses to be had, but yeah, it's not looking good for her.
But this whole strategic conversation, you can also apply it to Biden, right? That was the original argument that the Young Turks used to make, and Cenk was making. Okay, now we're going to fight from the inside when we'll have Biden. But that definitely already it doesn't seem like it's going to plan out. And Biden is going to do some things that the left and progressives want, but he always wanted to do those things. So like $15 an hour,
Uh,
resuming Paris
Very
climate.
minimal.
Yeah, but I mean, these are things that he didn't have to be convinced. They were kind of his starting positions coming back. To,
No, no,
Paris
to
climate.
be honest, if anything, he has during after the primary and the election,
Yeah.
he has a much stronger hand now, and he didn't have to concede anything to Bernie's team or anything. So yeah, no,
Exactly.
yeah. So no, but it was interesting. I don't know, this type of. It's a bit of a. I know it's because people are sort of in a fight right now. It's an exciting story in those terms
Yeah.
as well. Bit of a yellow, it's a lowest, you know what I mean? I don't feel great covering this type of news, but at the same time, I feel awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, what really hooked me was AOC's original $15 an hour tweet. That just
Oh yeah.
infuriated. I was like, no. I mean, that
No,
was
to be honest, this is her trend for the last year or so hasn't been very good. She doesn't talk about. She stopped commenting on Palestinian issues or something as well, avoiding questions, avoiding reporters. So, yeah, not looking good in terms of long term. That's why, with Bernie Sanders, even he got softened, I think, during the last 4 or 5 years. But at least he had been in the same position for 40 years or more since, I believe, 12th century when he got elected to the Senate in the first time. At the time, there was no elections. He had to fight there.
He had to walk from Colorado to what?
Since then, he hadn't changed his views. So
Wait, is he from Colorado? No, what state is he?
no, Vermont. He's
Vermont. Sorry,
Vermont.
sorry.
Vermont. Yeah, but yeah, since before that, he was the mayor of the 11th century village, whatever.
Okay, all right. Anything else to say on this story, or should we switch gears and move to some good old geopolitics
No,
between
no, I'm
Turkey
done
and the
with
US?
this. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go on to geopolitics.
Okay, so the US has a specific beef with Turkey that has to do with Turkey having purchased defense missile system from Russia, right? And as an ally of NATO, they say, this is US says that this will jeopardize our defense system and blah blah, these kind of arguments. Although apparently this Russian one is far more sophisticated than the American counterpart model, catching more missiles, wider range, something.
Well, their worry is that if the equipment sold to Turkey is bugged or whatever by Russians, and then they can get info from Patriot systems and all that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the thing. And then the latest development was that on Monday, the US, what did it already do in 2018? So this time it imposed sanctions, but what was the initial response?
I mean, I'm not specifically sure what you're talking about, but they refused to sell them.
The planes.
They
They refused to sell them the planes. Yeah.
Planes and patriotic defense system, which am I saying it? Patriot? Yeah, the Patriot defense system, the system that Saudi Arabia has for.
So
air
they
defense.
originally refused this in 2018 after Turkey had purchased the Russian system.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
I believe so. I don't remember if it was 2018 specifically,
Okay.
but I remember
I think
after
it was.
the S400 from Russia. Yeah.
And then on Monday they imposed sanctions, I think, on a handful of Turkish public figures, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what I read. But yeah, they imposed some sanctions. And then the latest, I think on Thursday, Turkey came back with just kind of a statement, right? That's where we're at right now, right? They just came out with a statement and we haven't seen anything since. But so what are your thoughts about all this? And then I have two specific questions I'll ask you.
I was surprised by the timing of it, because there are deep talks of EU sanctioning Turkey heavily, which is quite likely because Turkey's meddling
over the same issue.
Not meddling, they're feuding with over
the same issue.
No. Over the problems with Europe are endless, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Over the Mediterranean Sea, Greece. I mean, obviously, this is not stated officially, but Libya, Syria, Caucasus, all of these things. Erdogan's ambitions. So they're feuding, and they're quite likely to sanction Turkey soon, especially France is pushing for it. So I was somewhat surprised by timing of it, especially because Trump administration, I don't remember the details, but people who were Russiagate, in my view, debunkers like Aaron Motte and that type of people, there were quite significant evidence that proved if Trump's administration was in anyone's pocket, it was Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Michael Flynn apparently was involved in a plot to get one of Erdogan's biggest enemies, I forget Golbin. I forget his name, but he's a sort of a religious authority figure within Turkey who's very anti-Erdogan. They used to be in the same camp. Then he lives in US, and apparently Michael Flynn was planning to help Turkey in kidnapping him, and they US apparently they wanted to sanction Turkey at some point in NATO, but US didn't do, like, Turkey did something that it should have automatically sanctioned them by NATO, but US sort of vetoed that. Trump vetoed that. So I was somewhat surprised by US doing this at this point. But at the same time, I guess it's not surprising considering the S-400. Like, air defense, military stuff are always the most paramount issue for nations, for countries.
And yeah, so I think the religious figure that you're talking about, Turkey wanted to first and the US to hand him over something because they were saying he was involved in the, oh, not in the Khashoggi killing, sorry, in the coup, in the failed coup attempt. I think Turkey was saying that he
Yes,
was
yes.
behind it. Sorry, not the Khashoggi thing, of course. Okay, so I mean, Turkey's chances of now, you just talked about its relationship with Europe and everything. Its chances of joining the EU, I mean, that's definitely been put on pause for now. But what about Turkey
Oh,
leaving
that
NATO?
is.
Is that possible? And I read that, for instance, after the United States, Turkey contributes the most to NATO in terms of personnel. And yes, I mean, they're a big country with a big army, so
And yeah, they are and to be honest, they are the only one that are really, not even directly, but indirectly have been capable of engaging with Russia. The NATO's, I mean, Russia is very different from Soviet Union,
yeah.
but the a stated enemy, at least
It's original
officially.
raison d'être,
Yeah.
NATO's.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm trying to do some research about that and hopefully maybe do a video about it for this channel for next week. But it's definitely on the
Mm,
cards. It would be extremely
yeah.
difficult. I mean,
I read that apparently France left NATO around 63 or 67
yeah, I
and
think,
then rejoined them. And Turkey's economy, how is Turkey's economy doing? I heard its currency lost a lot of value over the past year.
yeah, it did. You're right. Turkish lira has devalued significantly during the last year, and it seems that there are two major reasons for it. One is obviously the coronavirus and its effect on Turkish economy, which tourism plays a major role in. And more importantly, probably, is their deteriorating relationship with Europe, one of their one of a major export market for them, as well as many European countries have significant investments in Turkey. So fears of sanctions, that type of thing, really hurt lira. That's true. But at the same time, interestingly, just researching a little bit for next week for this talk we had. This is according to Bloomberg, Reuters, and stuff. Turkish economy has significantly bounced back. Beside putting aside China, it has had the fastest rebound within the G20, the 20 biggest economies in the world.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and this largely seems, uh,
That's great.
yeah, this seems to be largely driven by the fact that the government pushed for banks to uh, don't stop loaning out money. Basically, they pushed the banks to loan out money easily to the people. They injected liquidity uh, through government bonds. Uh, it's basically, this is the in the third quarter they bounced significantly back, but it is expected that in the fourth quarter they are going to go down a bit again, and it's going to base economic growth rate for this year is going to average out on zero. Next year, their Bloomberg is predicting that they're going to have a growth rate of about 4%, which is still pretty good.
Okay.
But it was quite interesting to me that let me. This is a quote from the Bloomberg article, and uh, my apologies for some of the noise. Uh, the chief emerging market economist for Bloomberg. Turkey's output probably sorry. Turkey's output probably regained its pre-COVID level in the third quarter, one of the fastest rebounds in emerging markets. Activity will slow in fourth quarter on higher interest rates and a surge in the rate of COVID-19 infection. We expect growth to be around zero this year before advancing to 4% in 2021, which
Okay.
was up. Yeah, that was surprising to me. At, and this is, by the way, following basically a firing of the head of the central bank by Erdogan, and a new head of bank came in. Interestingly, though, while I was reading articles, foreignpolicy.com, which is that's a good online magazine as well. There they had an article headline: Erdogan is the economic problem of Turkey. Erdogan is the issue. In a way, maybe they're right because of his aggressive foreign policy, but in many ways, he's not doing as bad as expected considering the
Hmm.
situation in many ways. Although their currency has collapsed, and if you're a middle class citizen of Turkey, you're having a much harder time buying the goods you used to be able to buy very easily, because in a year your currency has devalued to 1/8 of what it was. So I understand that on everyday people it's hard, but I suppose he has managed to keep it sort of spread out, I
Yeah.
suppose. But yeah, it's
Okay.
quite
That's very
interesting.
interesting. That's very interesting. So it has had the second best rebound out of the world's biggest 20 economies. And I mean, China rebounded back. China China rebounded before everything went south in the States. I mean, China rebounded, oof, sometime in
Yeah.
2019, before Corona happened. They were rebounded. Okay, so but yeah, hopefully
Yeah,
we'll do a longer, more in-depth video on Turkey next week. Do you have something more on Turkey?
just want yeah, to put this the way that Reuters put it, because it's quite the way they put it is somewhat yeah. Turkey's economy roared to a more than
Oh,
expected 6.7% growth rate in the third quarter, as a flood of credit helped rebound it from a 10% contraction in the previous period, when lockdowns were imposed to curb the initial coronavirus wave. So, it is somewhat, it seems that everybody's shocked somewhat in
yeah.
that the third quarter they did so well. But
Wow, 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 wow. Strong headline by
yeah, it
Reuters.
was strong first paragraph at least.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna finish the news section of our podcast with some COVID talk. Just two fun little questions. But before that, this week is the 10th anniversary of the Arab Spring, I believe. So I'm not exactly know which part of the Arab Spring. Maybe when it started in Egypt. But anyway, it's the
No,
10th
it started. That's actually what
in
I was
Tunisia.
about.
Sorry, right?
Yeah, in
Yeah,
Tunisia.
my bad, Tunisia. Sorry, but the news
Hopefully,
moved on from that one quickly.
yeah. Well, yes. I mean, at the time, yeah. I suppose at the time
Yeah,
it
there
did
was.
take a week or two, but
Yeah,
it was. If you remember, it was a man who was
yeah, the
a young man.
market.
Yeah, he was a young grocer who set himself on fire
Yeah.
because of the economic pressure in Tunisia. And yeah, hopefully we do some videos about that next week as well. I was reading a few articles, and it seems that based on most pollings, although obviously pollings in many countries is not very accurate, but according to most polling and most analysts and most observers, people are not happy with the changes, and they feel like 10 years on things have gotten worse, and largely due to the
Yeah.
fact that yeah, I mean, Arab Spring is viewed as a complete failure and a negative, I suppose, negative events that took place within the Middle Eastern history. Interestingly, I was reading an article on Guardian about the Tunisia, and the fact that people in Tunisia are all, even though Tunisia is used to be called the exception of Arab Spring, and the one that basically managed to come out better out of it. Nobody says that anymore. Nobody argues that anymore, because Tunisians, due to economic pressure, they feel like uh, they are being crushed. They have apparently they are. I forget where they they have either the highest or the second highest number of people fleeing to Europe illegally. They have an extremely high number of people signing up for extremist religious groups abroad. And it was interestingly apparently the person who set himself on fire has a specific family name that in a specific city is a very common family name. They are a massive tribe of some sort, I suppose, from what I understood. And they were saying that their name used to be associated with we were respect. We had a very good family name, and uh, now we are associated. Everybody hates us. When you say that name, everybody gives you bad looks. Blah blah blah. So yeah, it truly turned
So wait,
sour.
in fact, wow, okay, okay, hold on, this last part. So in fact, they're saying that this revolution made things so much worse that rather than telling this person's family, like him being seen as some kind of martyr or something, it's actually opposite. Is that what you're saying? Did I understand you correctly?
From segments of the population. I mean, his pictures, he is drawn on the walls of many places. There are statues of him or some things like that. But yeah, it's this article suggested that majority of people feel that yeah, he's not he like I mean, I suppose they never said that they blame him specifically, but what because he set himself on fire and he passed away, so how can you blame him? But at the same time, they feel his actions had some consequences that were largely negative, and yeah, they are not happy about because I suppose there was more economic security when I forget Ben Aziz. I forget the Tunisian dictator's name, but when he was in charge, I suppose they had a better economic situation somewhat. And yeah, it was very sad that Arab Spring, even in a country that supposedly was the exception, it's has turned severely sour. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Egypt is a the Egyptian one was a complete like that was a joke really like I couldn't believe that happened like Syria uh, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I, I like don't want to use the word failure because it's like, because it's not like revolution needs to, it's going to, one revolution is going to have this clear cut result that is just like amazing and then is, what everybody wanted and that's it and nothing else has to happen. But at the same time, if your situation has significantly deteriorated, let's forget about Tunisia, but like the cases of Libya, perhaps like civil war and Syria civil war. So I mean, maybe in Egypt they could say at least, I don't know, at least like, okay, they got rid of one person and now they're facing another issue.
I mean, it was so funny though that they had an election and elected the president, and within a year he was in prison and another military dictator. It was just so the whole. I mean, it's something. There is a Adam Curtis documentary. I forget the name. I'll mention it another time. But it's about it's concept that a Soviet writer writes about hyper normalization. That a situation where everything is a lie. Politicians lie, and they know that that they're lying, but it's sort of a kabuki theater or something. And it's so weird that CC sort of it's just so transparently a show the whole idea of democracy and freedom and all that that it just yeah. Anyways.
No, I mean that part. What happened? Not that the Muslim Brotherhood was going to be the best government of all time or anything like that, but that was just like such a show. The way they rushed. I mean, I didn't like it from the get go. The way they rushed elections so quickly. They were like, okay, okay, quickly. Next month, then let's. It was ridiculous how quickly they rushed straight into an election. So that part, and then yeah, what they did a year later, just like removing him,
It was
rather,
so
yeah,
yeah, because the military did the problem, but they didn't suppress the revolution. They just waited it out. It was
yeah.
crazy. It was, and then had it shot like in the back. But yeah, that was very interesting article. But hopefully there will be some topics. Maybe we do videos on. Maybe not. Who knows?
Okay. All right. So let's talk about COVID a little bit. So I had written, so one thing that I saw today that was interesting, Al Jazeera had this short video on YouTube about how the WHO is now going to go to Wuhan and all this to carry out, I guess, some kind of investigation to find out, more information, more evidence on the origin of coronavirus. And I'm glad that that's happening. Doesn't mean that those crappy conspiracy theories from the beginning have anything to do with it. But besides that, I mean, I'm not even sure where this narrative came originally. Like, I guess it's China who somehow like found, I guess, the virus in the animals and then said that that's how it's transmitted. Like, what is the
Oh yeah,
evidence that we have so far on the origin story of coronavirus is that it was transmitted at one of these wild animal
okay.
markets, right? From an like animal to human, right? And I guess it was China who
From
just who.
Chinese authorities, and to be honest, other scientists that
Mm,
apparently have the information has been shared with them, and I suppose they sort of from the virus they reverse deduct. But apparently it was a bat, possibly like in
yeah,
an unhygienic condition, got transmitted to the pangolin and got eaten, or in a or somehow got yeah, passed to a human being.
yeah, and I think now is definitely the time to just go start really looking into
Could
that
have been
story
done.
now and unraveling more layers and everything.
Could have been done sooner as well. I think
Especially with the
I
situation in China, how it yeah, it could have probably been done sooner, but whatever. I mean, okay, this maybe brings me straight
no,
into my
I don't
second
mean
point.
conspiracy theories are
Yeah,
true, but if it had been done sooner, there would have been less excuse for them for
sure.
conspiracy.
Sure, but okay, this all happening within a year, which actually brings me to my second point about COVID. So I think without having done any research or anything, so like they say, this is just an a priori opinion. I think some of the policies and the reaction and the efforts by government, maybe except the US, let's forget about maybe the US and Brazil, maybe except these two countries, it has been some of like the best policies and react not that they were good, that they were amazing or that they couldn't have been better, but when you compare it to the usual cases, when usually if you want to address an issue, I mean, it's like it could probably be a never ending like discussion. You know how they say, oh, now we should react this way to climate change, right? That's exactly what I'm saying. There's never such a good reaction, such a genuine reaction to an issue, rarely. Maybe during times of war, but this is just maybe one of those other times that's probably brought out. So when someone, let's say, complains a bit about the government and the policies implemented during COVID in response to COVID, sure, I'm 100%, they could have been done so much better. But I would argue these are some of the best policies or reactions or genuine ones I've ever seen. Like, if you think these ones are crap, just, what do you think about all the other ones in other areas of life? Well, yeah, what do you
Oh,
think? What do you make of that?
I thought, to be honest, I thought you're gonna go with more. At first I thought you mean in the way that compared to past experiences, such as the Spanish flu or something, that was literally the news
No,
was
just
literally
past, no,
suppressed by the government, to
no.
uh, avoid losing soldiers in a war, basically. So I thought
No,
that's what you
compared
meant.
to all other issues that you see
Well,
everywhere around the world.
other issues I suppose don't have as as visible of a, as visible and as fast of a direct effect on people's life. I believe Kyle Klinsky says that a lot. That I don't know, four times, five times the number of people who died, is American, not people, American soldiers that died in Vietnam have died in, through the coronavirus, and uh, and Vietnam War caused. We can see how much effect it had in the culture and on everything. So I suppose in some ways it's not surprising that this issue was treated with far more urgency in terms of yeah, but
I
it
mean,
could
I
have been.
agree. Yes, it is. It is because of the nature of the issue, of course. That's such a good what I would consider relatively good response took place. Of course, is due to the nature of the issue. But my general point is exactly this issue forced politicians and governments to take, to genuinely try to fix to and address an issue. I think like in most countries, most places, they genuinely try, often against their own interest. At first you would hear like things in the US, oh, the government just wants to shut down all the businesses, and I'm like, how does that make sense? All these people are the most pro-business people, so why would they be trying to go against their own
No,
interest?
no.
But anyway, yeah, it is
Well,
because of the nature of the issue, but they were just
yeah,
forced to at least try, which is something that's never done, right? Usually they're trying to counter it and make things worse.
sure. No, that's true. But this one was hurting in the long term. It was hurting them in terms of like losing their workforce, I suppose, completely. And to
No.
be honest, about the specific conspiracy theory you mentioned, you could argue that,
Which one? Wait,
it
which
was
conspiracy theory? Which one?
they wanted to close down the businesses.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Why would they want to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that?
yeah.
And that would be, I suppose, there was a lot of conspiracy theories about digital companies or that type of thing, trying to basically expand their empires, and they did. I mean, that did happen
Yeah.
during this time. So, there are always justifications for these. But no, but I largely agree with you. I'm just
Yeah.
giving caveat.
No. Anything else about COVID? Anything interesting? Anything in your
Oh
mind
no,
that's
but yeah, I'm hoping the vaccine rollout is apparently going well, so that's good.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
hopefully
the
soon.
FDA just in the United States, at least the FDA is about to approve the second one, so the Moderna one. And the main difference between the Moderna and the Pfizer one is that the Moderna one can be kept in, I believe, a normal fridge or something like that for a week. So the transportation and the logistics are apparently easier for Moderna.
Oh, wow. I thought really interesting. I didn't know. I thought Moderna one was also very -80 or something.
No, apparently that's the only main difference that I know between the two of them, because Moderna is also 2 doses, and yeah, and it's also coming out of the States. Well, actually, Pfizer I think is a collaboration with, sorry, a German,
Bio
yeah,
something from, yeah, biomech med.
yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
all right. Let's talk now where we get our progressive news, or like channels that we like to watch. So how about you get us going? Actually, we had discussed that I will get going. That would be better with the flow. So the way I wanted to discuss this, address this question, is just how I really got into like progressive news and news. So I wasn't into it until I was like in my early 20s, let's say, and it was actually during when the Libyan civil war started and when the Arab Spring started. So I started like watching news very closely, and I was watching CNN a lot and BBC. So for a year I watched these news channels, but then I suddenly found out about the real news. I remember someone in class, I was in uni, someone in class mentioned, it was like, yeah, I like to go in this, it was a communication class, I like to go in this alternative, and they started putting out, so I don't know if anybody's familiar with the real news, but they started probably like 12 years ago now, and they just put out YouTube videos. They're based in Baltimore, also very active in Baltimore politics, and it, yeah, started with like a YouTube, just like videos. So I started watching them. They're really good, and they used to be really good. I mean, before they kind of switched to the whole concentrating more on Baltimore and issues in Baltimore, they would cover international news, which I guess is less. You hear that less in the other progressives that we're going to discuss. They would cover international news, and they would have really good guests. And then they would have, what was the name of the show? Reality Asserts Itself. And it would be like 6 or 7 episodes where they would start talking about like the person, his background, like Vijay Prashad, he was one of them. He was on it. All these big people you can talk about. And then it's released in 6 or 7 10-minute videos. Those were amazing. And then I found out Democracy Now! And I started listening to Democracy Now! But Democracy Now! Is really good. And for instance, Jeremy Scahill, I didn't know he was an intern there at first, and that's where it started. And I really like Democracy Now!, although they haven't changed their format ever. They haven't touched it, so I haven't watched it in maybe like 3 years or so. I mean, I feel like after a while, if you just continue watching the same people and the same channels, it's kind of the same issues that reappear. So Yeah, those are two that like I was watching religiously. Every single thing, every single day that everything that they put every day for like at least 3 or 4 years. But yeah, I started off with those two kind of
Right. Well, fascinating origin story. I mean,
origins.
yeah, comparable to, best Batman Joker. But but that's pretty good. That's yeah, I remember, to be honest. To be honest, I remember I used to talk a lot of politics with you, and just you
No, I wasn't into it exactly. I mean,
walking back
yeah.
away from
No, I suddenly got into it. Like
yeah,
it
yeah,
was like
suddenly
it was suddenly, and then it was like a year transition, and then I was like super into like
when
progressive and leftist news.
you remember you visited me in Europe at some point, and at the time we were studying North
Yeah,
America, and I think that was during your transition period because
yeah,
you
I
were
just started
slightly
kind of.
interested, yeah, but not quite committed to the
Yeah,
cause. But yeah,
the cause.
yeah, not clear what cause, but yeah. No, to be honest, I've grown up in a not a yeah. It's just I've always been. I grew up in a place where everybody was interested in politics and history and uh, geopolitics, economy, all that shit. So I got into it very early on. I've always been into it. Uh, Back in yeah, like but you know, I always like my dream was to become either a lawyer or a politician. So that's pretty crazy. Two most evil jobs on the planet Earth. But yeah, I've always loved geopolitics, especially because it's kind of like war games, I suppose. It's kind of like RPG. But yeah, the online though, like watching news online and getting into online news commentary. That for me sort of started with there was a that used to be massive online. It's not so much anymore. I was highly into Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and sort
So
of
wait,
the
how would
aggressive.
they? But yeah, yeah, okay, okay, okay. So let me stop you there. But back then, I guess people didn't really have news channels. You would kind of watch like segments of their talks, kind of things like that, right?
There
Yeah.
were I think there were channels then, and I was at
But like
uni.
Christopher Hitchens didn't have. Now, if he was still alive, he'd have the
Oh
Christopher
yeah, his
Hitchens
own yeah,
show
yeah, yeah,
channel.
show or
Yeah,
something. Yeah, although he
podcast.
was
Jeez, that would be
more of a
not
right,
bad. Hmm.
he would have been
That's not
great.
a bad. Maybe bring him back with one of those. What's that way that you holograms? No, what are they called? Like they do. Oh,
Like a spirits, like call.
no.
Uh,
Oh,
I don't
anyway.
know. Resurrection? What are you
No,
talking
no, no.
about?
Okay. No, no.
Oh,
Sorry. Okay.
like a
Y-
digital recreation,
Yeah.
like a Star Wars did with
Yeah.
but, yeah, all right. That's no, but it's his unpredictableness. That was his one of his best qualities. So I don't know if they can catch that in a hologram. But
Yeah. No, of
yeah,
course.
so yeah, I was massively into him and stuff. So I got into watching videos about that type of thing. That's where I came across Kyle Kulinski and Secular Talk. To be honest,
So how
uh,
old is his channel? Wow, it must be like 8 years old now.
12, I think, or something more
Stop.
than.
Shit. I wonder how old he was when he started it.
I think he was 20 or something, and now he's like about 30, 32 or something. But I'll check, to be honest.
No, go ahead.
Uh,
Yeah, you continue on. I'm checking.
and yeah, but then, I found out about the Young Turks, which was relatively a more professional, like, news coverage channel.
Yeah, 12 years ago. But okay, let me stop you there though with the Kyle Kalinske thing. Earlier on off camera, you were telling me, and I guess it makes sense with the name Secular Talk, but he was much more into like the, I don't know, atheist, agnostic, secular debates and
Yeah, back then, especially those days, besides Iraq War and all of that bullshit,
yeah.
this is before 2008 when the economic issues came into forefront. The religious extremism and their meddling in politics and all that was a
You're
bigger
absolutely
issue.
true. And I mean, yeah, yeah, of course.
There was massive debates with Richard Dawkins and all that.
Yes.
It was partially due to the fact that that was used as a way of propaganda to justify Iraq and Afghanistan war,
I mean, that's around the
especially
time where
after
Christopher Hitchens had also switched, let's say, and he was on the
it
Bush
was
side.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
2003 he switched and
yeah.
supported the Iraq war. Yeah, so this is again, yeah, before the economic crisis. So
And what
and
kind of videos was Kyle making? Like, what was he saying? Do you remember? Or I didn't watch him back then. I
he
don't.
used to make fun of a lot of Christian fundamentalists and religious. He used to argue a bit with them, I guess indirectly. He was an opponent of the Iraq War, I'm pretty sure.
But I guess
And
then
yeah,
after
but
that,
back then it was
the recession hit, so that probably affected his content. I'm just guessing.
no, I mean, I don't know if it was a conscious thing or not. Even it just focused. I think because we are about the same age as him and stuff, our generation focus completely changed towards economic issues, and religious stuff really got old and sort
That's
of
very true.
because it's a very sort of it's an endless argument when it
Eh,
comes to matters that relate to really ontological level of if you really believe in a creator or not and that type of thing. So it was people got sort of, I guess, tired of it. Became clear that it was somewhat of a show. I do think it's important to have those debates and freedom of speech, all of that, but and the economic issues felt far more real and um, you know uh, at least for the people living in the first world, because people in the third world were experiencing the economic crisis long before 2008 in many ways. So yeah, that's how I got into news and stuff. But over time, it has become far more professional. Oh, and I watch a lot of BBC videos. They didn't used to have YouTube. I used to go
yeah.
on their own website. Yeah, but yeah, that's how I got
That's
into
that's
online.
really interesting. Like that's personally, I'm like that too. I mean, I can't think of the last time I watched a video or like thought about the whole agnostic, secular debate. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of
Is
like
it
bored of it now. I was into it back then.
for example, is America secular? Technically, it's in its constitution, but
Yeah.
we all know it's highly religious in some aspects. So it's such a you have to get into details if
Yeah.
you really want to do.
Okay, all right, let's go
So
back to progressive news sources. So democracy now, I know, is still running just as the way it was. Nothing has changed, I would say, over the years. The real news focus on Baltimore, like I was saying, and the actual person who first started it. I think he left and pretty much started another similar channel. But then, yeah, there's the Young Turks, though. I was kind of into the Young Turks quite a bit, maybe like 3, 4 years, maybe, no, yeah, 5 years ago. Now a bit less. They're a huge channel. They have a lot of content and stuff. Where do you stand? What are your latest thoughts and views about the Young Turks? So let's not go back. Let's just talk about now.
sure. But let me just say that in terms of democracy, and the real news, yes, since the real news got really local, I haven't been following them, to be honest.
Yeah, they're
And
extremely local now. Yeah, which
yes,
is
and
good. I also like that, though. To be honest,
yeah,
it's
that's for
it's
the
an
local
interesting thing. Then
people of there. And democracy now, I feel like, wow, you guys are really boring. And the voice, I love Amy Goodman. I think she's a great journalist, and the Mr.
yeah,
Gonzalez, I forget his first name, but it's like the late night radio talks that and now jazz, like
yeah.
jazz
But
DJs,
it's interesting though their strategy in a way. They're like,
and
we have a formula that works. Some people like
does
this.
it
I
work?
think, I mean, they've remained successful. I mean, they're generating
Are
enough money for this size of the business. I mean, they haven't
they
gone backrupt.
growing? I suppose I
They
don't know,
haven't.
but
I don't think they want to grow though. It's as if it's like that.
okay, exactly. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they don't strike me as the type that want to grow
Yeah,
either. But at any rate, that was just my take on them.
but
I
they're
like them,
pioneers.
but I can't. I can't watch them. It's too much. I rather watch, ants or something. At the same time, Young Turks, I used to watch them. To be honest, I never really liked them because they have this weird. They're trying to be cool, but teach you at the same time. They have this vibe of a cool teacher that is trying to, being good is cool, man. So, and yeah, but I used to watch them because they had great content, to be honest, in terms of politics coverage. And Cenk is quite a good commentator. I quite like, and uh, yeah, it was they're pretty good until, I mean, then they got really good because I used to suddenly for a year I really liked them because Jimmy Dore was there, and
So that was
uh,
pre-Trump, probably. That's probably
pre-Trump, yeah, yeah,
2015 primaries.
yeah, yeah. For a year, there was a couple of people who I found very interesting. I mean, some of them clashed. Ryan Grimm used to come a lot. He still goes there a lot, and I love Ryan Grimm. And yeah, but then yeah, Trump happened, and RussiaGate happened, and especially not so much the RussiaGate itself, but the fact that, I mean, I would still say that the Young Turks were the only channels that had somebody from the opposing view on their channel, and they didn't kick him out or anything. They didn't impose any regulations
Who
on him.
is that? Who
But
is
I
that?
think
Who's the who
Jimmy Dore,
Jimmy Dore? Okay.
that's what he said. He said they never interfered, and they wanted him to stay. He didn't want to stay. But at the same time, I would say that they really need to, if because they are somebody who called out Washington Post and other news organizations for their support for Iraq War, and then lack of acknowledgement in their role and in their, so I think they should acknowledge their mistake in regards to that. And that really, yeah, since then I couldn't watch them much because in their coverage of Trump, in my view, they became somewhat hysterical, and not all of them, obviously, members, but and yeah, and their content is somewhat uh, deteriorated since then. Too much focus on Russia stuff, and generally the problem with not just the Young Turks, but all American news commentators, that they're way too much domestically focused. Jimmy Dore is
Yeah.
some of the Dore show I love. Uh, I like, to be honest. I don't watch as much because he gets very angry, but that's for content wise. I quite like him,
Yeah.
and yeah, uh,
I mean, over the past year, I would say the Young Turks has just not only become only about domestic, now it's just pure like little funny, weird, strange things about Trump. Like the main videos that they put on their main channel, they're all like this. Like Trump advisor said this, Trump Trump did that. They've just
yeah,
fallen completely. And yeah, nothing about foreign policy, not foreign policy, but talking about issues in the other countries. But to be fair, like secular talk, uh, they don't do it there either. And I mean, there's so much in the in U.S.
and
politics that I can see that just consuming all your time.
sure, but at the same, yeah, but we. That's what I find very disappointing, that we, not that we are as good as them or as detailed as them or anything, but we do read about the news and cover the news, and we know quite significantly about America or about Europe, about France, blah blah blah. So it's not that hard if that's your job to know a little
No,
bit.
but I
And
think they
to
want
be
to.
honest,
But I think they
when
want to
they
focus.
yeah, and when they do cover foreign countries, they tend to really suck at it. Like even
Yeah.
Kyle, who I really like, I really hate when he talks about the history of Iran and the idea of backlash following because they're not familiar with the historical debates within that country. So they take one take that a certain group agrees with, and they say that as a fact. So yeah, they're quite weak. Everybody's quite weak in America in that, and I would say though, yeah, uh, uh, just to add to that is that they may be getting better. Who knows as time goes on, because with globalization.
I don't think they try though too much. I mean, Kyle is also Kyle also just he doesn't he's actually explicitly said it. I heard it that he doesn't want to follow the Young Turks model. Like he wants to
Yeah, yeah,
just be him, just like this. So I mean, as one person, I think it's actually not bad for him. I think that he's specializing on just U.S. politics because then his takes I mean, his take on the election when he was on the Joe Rogan show, I mean, he predicted things well and he saw things coming very
Yeah, yeah.
well. So it helps when you just focus like that. Okay, and then anything else to say about these guys, or I'm just gonna mention who I think. So the latest addition, I would say the superstar of 2020 has definitely been the Rising. So
Oh, you're
they've
yeah,
been like,
like
I
yeah, they
only I
both.
only found it hasn't even been a year. I only found about them January of this year. Found out about them January of
Same.
this year. But yeah, they're also all about
I, I,
internal
I
US.
I knew about Crystal Ball because I had
Mm,
seen her on Young Turks and many other channels quite a lot. But I mean, they started apparently fully doing this online stuff about 2 years or a year ago as well, and they apparently blew up with an Andrew Yang interview.
yeah.
But yeah, they're pretty good. I think they. I mean, I do feel sometimes again, yeah, with every channel, you don't agree with everything they say or anything, and they are their format is a bit too jingly for me. Like, oh, now cut to Sager. Now, what
Yeah.
is on your radar? What is on your radar? It's a bit. I don't like that type of stuff. Maybe I'm not. Yeah, I'm not great at it. As every time I try to say like and subscribe, you can tell probably. But yeah, besides that, it's a great show. I think they do
Yeah.
great coverage.
And they have like an interesting angle and dynamic, right? Which is that
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
both like disillusioned left and
anti-establishment of
rightist.
their
Yeah,
own.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Sega is a sort of an old-fashioned conservative
Yeah.
in terms of they are economically more aligned and socially far
I
less
think that's
aligned.
what brings them together, kind of.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
the the rich are fucking the poor, and that's kind of like that's like their common denominator. I would say that.
yeah. I would say a state-led development. They both agree with a state-led development. They might completely disagree in the details of it, though. Like maybe Saiger would be more for something that the state contracts things out to private
Hmm.
companies, while Crystal Ball is more inclined towards a state-owned or state owns means of production,
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, to be honest, I haven't really looked into them personally. I have used them mostly as a news. They're great for American news because they do a lot of content about the specific states. They have some of my favorite people on a lot, like Katie Halper and Ryan Grimm
Yeah.
and Kyle Kalinske. So yeah, they're great. They're great.
No, their channel is definitely good stuff. And then yeah, Katie Halper, you actually watch her a lot. I've subscribed. I haven't watched too many videos, but you like her. And then
Yeah, I think she's great, and she does a podcast with Matt Taibbi as
yeah,
well, who's a great journalist. Useful Idiots. That's a great podcast, but that's a completely formatted, Rolling Stone produced. That's a high-end stuff. Katie Halper show is far more like what we do here.
yeah,
I mean, far better in terms of guests. And yes, she's great because I think her show is not so much about. It's the complete opposite of Hill in that way. That not that Hill doesn't have content, but Katie Halper is completely about content, about the guests. More in many ways more in line with the Joe Rogan style, like doing long interviews with academics, focus mostly on left issues within America, obviously.
hmm
But and she brings in great people that debates great stuff. I think. Yeah, I like her a lot. And I've mentioned a couple of times his name, Ryan Grimm. I think he's fantastic, especially for U.S. internal politics. And now with one of the people, oh, let's by the way talk about people we don't like as well. One of the peoples I have hated for a very long time, since he was active in UK, is Mehdi Hassan, who recently went to Peacock. Peacock is for CNBC or MSNBC, I don't know, but he was the host of the Deconstructed podcast for Intercept, and now Ryan Grimm, who's a far better host and a far better journalist, is I'm obviously being fictitious somewhat here, by the way. Yeah, he's hosting that, and I really recommend everybody checking it out. That's
No,
fantastic.
the other guy you just mentioned, his future lies at Hard Talk.
Yeah,
He should just
CNN.
BBC Hard Talk. I think is perfect for him. Where
Mm,
It
Yeah,
kind of because the way he talks and confronts you,
yeah,
you can like close your ears, and it doesn't matter what he's saying is good or bad. Like it will be aggressive in that way. So it's just perfect for that show.
he's a he's a I don't think he does it consciously, to be honest. I don't know. I'm not in people's brain to know their motives, but I don't know. I just generally don't like the way he argues and what he argues for.
But the way
When
he
he argues
argues is
for,
something that I think is it common in England, like in British journalism.
it is far more common in British journalism, especially back in the days with Jeremy Paxman, and yeah, you can argue that. What's his name? Stephen something, the hard talk interviewer, but they usually do it with far more tact, and he's is a bit of a, it's like he keeps spitting in people's faces as well. Have you noticed? He's like, well, why not? Why not Iran? Why not?
I haven't watched too much of
Shut the
it.
fuck down. Let the other person. I don't know. And he's in my view. I hate people who. I mean, I I'm I come from a Muslim background, Islamic background, and I hate people like him that, in my view, make that issue a major issue in terms of they focus way too much, in my view, on Islam, and they represent Islam as a race, and they are. Anyway, they're far too focused on identity politics. Is By the way, I'm sitting here, with how many viewers do we have on our average like YouTube video, like 100 or something, and half of them is me checking it over and over again. So I'm not in any place to judge. It's just a
Yeah.
personal opinion. So whatever. Yeah.
No, but one thing I haven't heard from Mehdi Hassan since he came on my radar when he had that interview with Chomsky about voting for Biden over Trump and not voting. Do you remember there was
He
a
he's quite yeah.
he agreed there was that whole debate, right? So like
With Kyle
Chang
Kalinske. Yeah.
Chang and Cenk and Mehdi Hassan and Noam Chomsky, there were like three who like were on that side of the debate, and then there was Kyle Kalinske about no, you have to vote for Biden and lesser of the two evils, and
To be
then
honest,
the same
I
reoccurring
think
argument every four
there were
years.
many, yeah, there were many people on the side that you shouldn't vote or whatever. Kyle
Yeah,
Kalinski's position was that I don't care what you do, I'm
yeah,
just not voting,
yeah,
which I thought was a very reasonable. Like, I understand if people have different rationale for their own decision.
yeah. And if you're not in a
So
swing
instead of
state, just
that, they're
stop
saying,
talking. Just like, and if you're not in a swing state, just vote for. Actually, you should vote green if you're not in a swing state. To be honest, if you're like a progressive, if you like more go towards there, or maybe vote something else. But anyway,
Socialist International.
yeah, okay. Let's forget about that. But yeah, and they never even mentioned that this is only a discussion if you're in a swing state. So
Yeah. It's just I hate people who are, they don't like, instead of arguing their points, they start arguing either against your character or against the consequences of your action, type of thing.
yeah,
I find that somewhat annoying and cheap, to be honest. You're an enabler or blah, or because you can say, all right, you did, it's just such a, yeah, is who's responsible for what? Anyways, it's just, yeah, not a genuine argument, not a genuine argument, in my view. And you see Noam Chomsky argue the same point far better, far more calmly, without coming across as a creep. And
yeah,
anyway, don't want to get
yeah.
anyway.
Okay, what
Maybe
else?
not that.
We mentioned the intercept in passing, but we forgot to talk about Glenn Greenwald a bit. Where is Green? What's the name of his new endeavor? Do you know?
He apparently there is a website, Substack, that is kind of like a, I suppose, YouTube for journalists or writers,
Yeah, yeah.
and he's apparently already is topping the charts in that or something.
Jesus.
In the Intercept, when Intercept started, it was fantastic, and again the fucking
Yeah.
Trump election, and
What are your thoughts about intercept?
I completely, well, in the whole feud they had with Glenn Greenwald, I take the Glenn Greenwald side, and I think that they are they used to be a great journalistic institution, and they still do great stuff about domestic policy in America. but they do a lot of bullshit as well, especially in terms of foreign policy. I think James Risen, like the guy who I think they're terrible writers, and like they did a piece about some leaks about Iran intelligence ministry, and even in terms of writing, they've deteriorated. The articles start as these shortest stories in a dark corridor at night, a USB. Come on, this is supposed to have been more about actual content, not the typical bullshit you read in New York Times or Washington Post where they start with a sort of a event, like they wanna.
Mm.
It's not fucking. You're not writing fiction, okay? Put aside
I
your
think I
dream
think they're
of
like
writing a novel to the
financing
side.
in, yeah. I mean,
I
I'm,
think,
yeah. But I
and
always get emails from them like asking for money for financing and stuff. But I feel like at one point they went like too hard into like their branding and their financing, because Intercept has like a, like it has like a cool brand identity kind of. But
yeah,
now
yeah,
it
yeah,
seems
yeah.
like going into like just embracing
No,
it
no,
too
but
much.
I mean, and they're, by the way, supported by. They are funded by uh, Pierre Omidyar, famous American, Iranian French American entrepreneur,
Founder of
but
eBay.
founder of eBay. And he apparently, according to Glenn Greenwald, he wasn't the one who again interfered ever. And seems to be the case a lot of times that the funder or the person with the money, the billionaire class themselves are not the bad guy. The managers they have are
Yeah.
the I forget her
I wonder
name.
if he was still putting in money though, because they kept on raising funds. So I know he started it. He put the initial money, but I wonder if he
I think
still.
he's still contributing somewhat, but according to Glenn Greenwald, especially in their New
Yeah.
York office, they spend a fuckload, but they don't do much. Especially like James Risen, as he pointed out, he writes what once every 6 months or something, and he probably has the highest salary because of his name recognition and
He
all of
was there
that.
from the beginning-ish.
No, no, it's not James Risen. No, no, he
But he
didn't.
he came in like a year into it or
They,
something.
they tried to basically no after no, 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 not even that early. But, although Intercept is not that old, they're 4 years
It's
old
like,
anyway.
no, 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 no. I think they're like 6 years, good 6 years old, and they hit the ground
Okay, he
running.
came in
So they hit the ground
right
running
after.
with Glenn Greenwald and
Look, I think this is the version Glenn Greenwald gives, and to my mind, and based on my observation, it makes the most sense. Is the fact that after Trump's election, and they were blamed, they among many others were blamed by covering Hillary emails and blah blah blah,
mhm.
by covering Hillary's flaws, that they played a part in electing the most disturbing person in history as the president. American Andrew Jackson used to suffocate American Indians with his own hands. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But American indigenous people, I mean. So they try to balance this out by bringing people like James Risen and that type of people in, or they even published articles by that idiot that writes for Guardian. I can't believe these people get paid. Luke something, the one that walked out of a interview with Aaron Mate, lied. Pretty much everything he has written about RussiaGate has been like
Oh, I
proven
don't know
false.
him.
Luke something, Luke something. Anyways, but yeah, so since then, since RussiaGate, they have gone way down. They have gone way down, even in terms of domestic politics, even in terms of writing and everything. So that's a disappointing thing. Guardian, similarly, I used to like far more. They went crazy before Trump and all that. They went crazy with Jeremy Corbyn. They
Hmm.
went crazy with Jeremy Corbyn became the Labour leader. That was very disappointing because I thought because
Yeah.
until they were in complete opposition, the hard left, they kept writing, oh, these are the stuff we want, but we can't have because they're far too out of reach. But then when there was a chance to get those things, suddenly they became more right wing. Like BBC had a fair far fairer coverage of Jeremy Corbyn in my view than Guardian did. So yeah, just during the last few years, my take on the news has been basically the struggle against RussiaGate and finding good sources that don't cover news in a hysterical and a bombastic manner.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I'm also not too much into The Guardian anymore. And then, yeah, you mentioned you like reading foreign policy and I guess like other places, like good articles. Good. I remember Noam Chomsky once said this. He said that like he reads like 10 of the main newspapers every day or whatever, maybe less. But his main point was that if you read all of the newspapers, there's good content in it, and there are some things that they cover genuinely and they don't have an agenda again. It's just that the general media, the one that come into the TV, the main narratives, the main big stories, they're the ones that are just complete complete garbage.
Oh yeah, with the whole Russia stuff, we saw that you would have this headline that there may be a hack of major electricity grid of a city by Russian forces or blah blah blah, and then 2 days later when they retracted it, a
Yeah.
smaller segment of. So yeah, obviously,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
you're
like the
right.
New York Times might do like terrible coverage on that because that's an issue that they're so embedded into and like US interests and blah blah. But then if there's like a country or an issue where there are no immediate interest really on, then they might do like a really good job in covering that specific story. So it just kind of depends on where they fall with the issues, a lot of these newspapers.
True, true. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like there's a I don't know. It was in inside joke, or maybe it wasn't. It was quite into. But there is like, if you want to find out the news about the U.S., watch RT.
Yeah.
If you want to find out the news about Russia, watch CNN. Like it's almost no, not now.
Yeah.
Now they're completely mad. Yeah, watch American good news sources. Like when any news organization tend to have has its own agenda, and you should try to focus on the news where they have the least amount of
Yeah.
agenda there. Unless you're watching somebody who's a academic or something that is focusing on an issue, in my view. So
Yeah.
yeah, but the Intercept and Guardian was really sad, especially Intercept was because I gotten used to their podcast, and
But
I
their
like
pod, okay, but that podcast, okay, the one that Jeremy Scahill did, you remember that one?
yeah,
That one was
I like
only about Trump. That one only about Trump, and I think that one, it.
it became only about Trump.
Oh, I only heard it was just about Trump, and it had some really high end production. Like, I mean, the music and stuff was amazing. But then I
Yeah,
remember there was one thing, but I guess I used to believe that too. But I think that podcast, one of the main things like Jeremy Scahill, everyone used to say is that okay, Trump won't even last 6 months. Okay, he's president now, but he's gonna have a heart attack or he's gonna get bored and he's gonna leave. And that was like the main
wow,
argument
I
that
didn't
was
know
made,
that.
I remember, throughout the first year of that podcast. And I used to kind of think that too for the first 6 months or a year. But then it became clear that yes, he has like he can't focus on an issue. Everybody knows that, but he can focus on his own brand and doing his own
I,
thing in a consistent
I
level.
like to say I made a bet that Trump will not be kicked out of office and stay in office, and I did when I made the bet like a 4 days or 5 days after he won the election. I like to point that out. But
Okay, okay.
yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
yeah, and then
I
yeah,
didn't
there
know
were thought.
Scahill
Yeah.
was such a was he so wow? I didn't know about that. I haven't followed his work for a
No, I
while. I
remember it
suppose.
wasn't like it was just like this guy is old and he has one of them was just that. One of his things was like this guy is old and he has a terrible diet, so we won't be surprised if he dies. And the other one was like he'll get bored and and leave. I remember those were the
Fair
main
enough.
ones, but then it was just about the
He'll
Trump
see
thing.
himself in the mirror like a cat, and then he gets distracted.
But yeah, okay. Anything else about news channels, blah, 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 before we talk a little bit about what we want to do with this channel and our our vision 2021.
Uh, to be honest, no. Let me just
Where'd you get your news about Iran and let's say like other issues like Turkey and like Nagorno-Karabakh? Where were you following these kind? Where do you follow this
to
kind of
be
stuff?
honest, usually BBC reports a piece of news, or Reuters, BBC, mostly I follow BBC, reports a piece of news, and then I Google that and I try to read as much as there is. But I like DW is pretty good. It's a the German version of BBC, basically.
Is BBC
They,
your go-to like institutional like mainstream channel though? Is
yeah,
it your
yeah,
favorite? I think mine is maybe Al Jazeera. I don't know. It's the one I
yeah.
watch
I
the
know,
most
yeah.
often, but
I mean, it's. I mean, BBC is biased, but I know it's as somebody who doesn't believe that there is such thing as fairness and stuff, but they do genuinely seem to be the fairest of most news coverage, at least
yeah,
English ones. And then DW is good, France 24, Al Jazeera, but I never check these in the morning. I check BBC. I don't check these.
okay.
I ch- what's RT? RT is pretty good. RT is a bit Fox Newsy sometimes. I don't like that. What else? But DW France 24 are far better on Africa and Middle East, for
Mm-hmm.
example. C's far better on Europe and Middle
Yeah,
East, and so it's on Anadolu or
yeah.
something agency, which is Turkish, I believe. They're pretty good. So not on issues regarding Turkey, by the way. Oh, there is a great Indian channel, The Print. Apparently, The Print is a newspaper in India. It's a popular
Mm,
newspaper. There is a old guy, Shekhar Gupta, if I'm not mistaken. I don't agree with him. He's very anti-left and all that, but when he gives an overview of the subject, his details, it's fantastic. Um, and because of that, I've gotten into Indian political news. It's just because he explains it pretty good. Um, a couple of Israeli like Haaretz, if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken. I checked that website once in a while.
yeah. They're supposed to be really good. They have a good
Yeah.
reputation.
I don't know. Well, do you have any sort other sources you want to mention?
No, I also watch pretty much the same video channels that you're saying. I go on Google News a lot, which gives you kind of the stuff that you follow. It kind of that's how it
Ah,
shows you what's there. Yahoo News World, they have a selected number of news that they do, but usually it's just the news from the agency itself, so either AP, Reuters, or AFP. So that's pretty good to watch. Okay, but my secret is the first thing I check in the morning, and it's just an old habit from a few years ago, is the Guardian. But not for like necessarily news, but to see if the world has ended. You know, like just their just their first story, just to see if I have to go back to sleep and it's all over, or
that
yeah,
to be honest, I check Guardian more than even BBC just for the headlines. That's
yeah.
yeah.
But no,
I don't wanna. I keep trying to. I feel like a dirty person when I use Guardian.
no,
I
it's on
do.
the first. Okay, all right. Let's slowly wrap up this podcast. And we're wrapping up. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the channel and how we see it. I'll go first. So basically, there are just two things that I see more for this channel now. Is just so it's not just a podcast or that it's not just news that we do, but it's to cover news, especially international geopolitics news, but trying to bring the best kind of insights. So a lot of them will come from you, maybe a tiny bit here and there from me, but just getting like journalists and other
No, but
experts on
yeah,
different
yeah,
issues,
yeah.
bring them
I
on.
mean, the
Yeah,
best
that's
insights you said was somewhat. Yeah. I would please edit that out.
okay, but do that and then yeah, start doing interviews not only on specific issues, but let's say if there's like a big writer who has a new book out or something, bring him on and talk about him. So that's just talk about it. So that's just one thing I want to start doing in the new year. And the second one is that if one day we have enough subscribers to make the podcast more interactive, and maybe through the chat people can suggest topics that we either prepare for in advance or yeah, just look it up and yeah, these are just two things. What about you?
I largely similar hopes and dreams. To be honest, I mean, to be completely honest, there are the issues I like and we discuss are not the issues that are discussed as much as I like in the news, you know, and they are my favorite
Okay,
topics
so
like
what do we
geopolitics.
cover right now, you think? And what would be your favorite things to talk about?
Oh, geopolitical news, where
But we do
I
a lot of that.
political. Yeah, we do. No, that's what I mean. Like that's not covered currently
Oh,
in
okay, okay, yeah.
news in most
Yeah.
of YouTube. It's there are very few, especially on the international level, as like we talked about Kyle Kalinske, all of them focus domestically. Oh, by the way, a UK version of, let's say, TYT is a Novara Media does this show Tiski Sour every night. They do a 1 hour show. That's a very good show. Aaron Bastani, a British guy, fantastic show. Check that out if you can. But again, that one is very UK focused. So I thought maybe similar something I can do something like that in terms of international politics. Obviously, I want to raise my own profile because I hope someday to finish my own studies in a more significant way and perhaps write books or some shit like that. And so this is clearly, for my own profile as well. But I hope the channel, maybe this I hope I don't get too, dreamy or anything, but covers some issues in a more detailed way and make some information which in my view are not crazy hard information or sophisticated crazy stuff, but they're just not available to a lot of people or not accessible. Make those available and accessible and explain them in a calm and
Yeah.
rational manner and takes from us. We definitely have a bias, and I don't believe in fairness or
Yeah.
something like that, but at least give a clear view of our own views and of other people's views. And yeah, talk about cool stuff in
Yeah.
politics, like, yeah, that country attacked this country, what's gonna happen? Oh, we don't know.
No, I
So
mean,
yeah,
talking about the news itself, that's like one of the benefits of just starting this channel,
sure.
just so we can chit chat. So that's like the main one.
To
And
be
then,
fair,
yeah,
what we are doing as a show and trying to make money and like get profile off of was something that we were doing in a less consistent basis anyway. Like
yeah,
we used to call each other and talk about the same things anyway. So
exactly.
we just organize it a bit more now. So that's good.
No, exactly, exactly. And then, but yeah, I mean, the main thing we should also highlight about our channel is the whole international and global
That's
kind of perspective and aspect that we have. But then, yeah, for now, given that we don't have that many subscribers, I think some of the issues and diving deeply into some stuff is a bit more problematic because some videos and some issues get picked up very easily by SEO, but then climate change and environment, unless something huge happens, they just don't get picked up. So that's just another issue, kind of climate
and
and
it's
environment.
and when something does happen, it's hard to prepare for it so fast in terms of.
Yeah,
So yeah, I agree that's why. I mean, I think in the beginning we were doing more deep dives, but then we decided that maybe it's best at this point to
yeah,
focus on slightly growing the audience uh, before doing deep dives and hopefully doing other types of
yeah,
format. One of which we are gonna try out from. Basically, we tried it out this week, but officially from next week with the Middle East updates of some sort.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely,
Mm.
definitely.
And bring
But
guests, a lot of guests starting like
oh,
hopefully in January. So people who know about a specific news story, so like a journalist, but then also, some bigger people on the left. And you had a good idea, a way to get to talk and know some of these people who sometimes come just talk about issues, just to dive into maybe their latest books or like other work that they do, which I think would be really
I think
fun.
so. I mean, that's first of all, that's a great way. Yeah, I think that's a great way to structure a talk with somebody. First of all, second of all, it helps to raise awareness about academic books or
Yeah.
books in general, which I mean, I would assume we are interviewing with people we find at least interesting, even if we don't agree.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, I think
Except I still want to do the upcoming book of what's his name, Jordan Peterson. We won't invite him, but I still want to review
no,
his book just for
even
fun.
if I mean he would, to be honest,
He
he would.
wouldn't come.
I don't want to say he would honor us, but it would be a great get if we
Yeah,
can
but
get
he
him.
wouldn't come.
But I don't know if your views and his views would,
But I'm looking forward
match
to reading
mine
his new
though.
book. Yeah, so I'm going to read his new book anyway and see.
I mean, to be fair, he has been extremely open to interviewing with people who are clearly close. Because even though I don't agree with him on lots of issues, I hate it when he went on Channel 4 and it was a hostile, people, they're literally trying to get a reaction out of you. They're not
Hmm.
trying to get an answer out of you.
Yeah,
And that's not nice, and he doesn't seem to, he may be open to anything. I mean, we are very small at the moment, so
yeah.
don't assume anything, but whatever. Yeah, just.
Yeah.
But that would be a great idea because, to be honest, I rather you read the book and give a summary to me, and I read
Yeah.
more.
I was gonna get it. It's not out
And
yet. It comes out in March apparently. So we'll
have you
do
read
that.
anything by him before?
Nope. And I've actually haven't listened to him that much or know that much about him. Like for instance, I'm comparing him to what's the atheist and secular guy?
Richard Dawkins,
No, the other younger guy, the
Sam
American one,
Harris.
Sam Harris. Like here, I've listened a bit too much, unfortunately. So, but him and Jordan Peterson talks about different stuff anyway. So his book, I don't actually mind seeing a little bit
They
what
they
it's
do a
about.
debate as well, actually.
Mm.
And to be honest, even though I'm not at all a fan of Sam Harris, and in fact I do have a slight, like, I really, I mean, I know this is personal and irrational, but I hate the fact. Anyway, just I feel I disagree with him on his views on Christopher Hitchens' views. So anyway, but I agree with him more than Jordan Peterson because Jordan Peterson is somewhat of a conservative when it comes to spiritual beliefs
Mm.
and
But
such.
Sam Harris, one of the things I really didn't like is that whenever he talked about politics and political issue, he would adopt like a philosophy type of argument. So it'd be like, would in this case, would you be able to do this in that way? But we're talking about stuff that are like happening and concrete in
The
politics
problem,
and news. You don't need to make up a scenario. There's a scenario already.
I
I remember
mean,
he had this back and forth with Chomsky. It's as if like Chomsky was talking to like some kid or something. I mean, his level of
no, no, no.
analysis was so low.
He's back and forth with Chomsky, in my view. Chomsky was genuinely.
Rude.
Chomsky can be extremely dismissive in a really, like, okay, man, all right, he's not right, but answer the man,
Yeah.
or he's
Hmm.
trying to communicate. So in that case, was actually exception for me. But Sam Harris, I think this is my view again, and I'm in no position of authority. He's a neuroscientist, and I think Abby Martin sort of made this point on Joe Rogan's podcast that Abby Martin was somewhat aggressive about it, that I don't need to talk to somebody who's a neuroscientist about politics or about journalism and stuff. And I could make the point that, to be honest, journalists are not really that, they shouldn't
Or
really talk about
Chomsky,
politics.
what would you say about Chomsky?
No, no, but I would say neuroscience is different from social sciences,
But
in my view.
Chomsky did
That's a personal.
linguistics. He's an expert in linguistics or something. I mean,
No, but he's linguistics has he's expert in linguistics, but he's
that's what
also
he
big
teaches at the
expert.
university.
Sure, but he's also I mean, yeah, but he has, I
Exactly.
guess,
He also became an expert in this area. So I
but
mean,
linguistics. When Chomsky, to be honest, went into linguistics, it was more, there was more social science
hmm,
within it, I would say, than certainly neuroscience. Because Chomsky's contribution was partially to come up with the idea that there is a or mechanism in the mind that generates grammar or something, universal grammar. So I and he started. I thought he started as an active. I don't know. Let me
right.
check out
But
his
Chomsky, in any
exact
case,
date.
exactly, Chomsky. But my point is that, like, just
Yeah,
because he's a neuroscientist doesn't mean he won't know
I'm
anything
not.
about
I'm
anything
not
else.
saying. I'm
Yeah,
not saying
yeah, yeah.
if. Yeah, everybody
But in
who's a
his case,
neuroscientist
it
should
is
shut up
very
about.
true. Yeah.
I think his brain, because of that, he doesn't talk about the issues in a real way. As you said, he puts it in a philosophical stuff. And for people who've been talking politics for many years, it does get frustrating that, okay, man, yes, maybe in your philosophical scenario, you're right, but that's never going to happen. That
And that's
never does
because
happen.
exactly.
And intentions don't really matter, and you can never know intentions. So what's the point of
And that's the
talking about
thing. I did like
you
one or two philosophy classes, and that's how I realized that I was okay, the way he's talking, it's not like random bullshit. He's just kind of speaking a different language and using different methods of argument that are not
yes,
required in this area. And
yeah,
don't
and
bring anything to it. They don't enrich it anyway. Of course, if not, there's political philosophy, which is its own whole field, of course. And
sure, but I do think also there was a bit of a. This is again a personal take, so maybe I am completely wrong. Um, I think over time, like when he does his debate with Cenk Uygur, I think his views had been and was at the time being misrepresented a lot, right? But as time passed, I think he felt attacked and he had to, you get into trenches. I feel his views got more, in my view, again, idiotic about
Mm,
Muslims and Islamic people as time went later on, because he got so unfairly attacked so
mm,
much. Because I think a lot of people, clickbait was massive. Clickbait is still massive, but was so much more bigger than on YouTube and stuff. So I think a lot of people attacked him for the sake of attacking him and getting, because he had a profile, he was known. Uh, yeah, and I think like when you watch his debate with Cenk Uygur, I think until then and even at that time, his views were largely okay and were in many cases being misrepresented.
mm.
So
See.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, are you looking up Chomsky stuff? Is that what you're doing there?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I'm exactly
But yeah,
institute.
let's slowly wrap this up. While you're looking, I'm just
Sure.
gonna ask people to, of course, like and subscribe if they like this podcast. We're not sure if we're gonna do one weekly, right? Maybe start every 2 weeks for now and then circle back and see how it goes. But we're gonna keep on putting out a lot of news stories, and then the new year, hopefully, a lot of interviews and other experts that we can bring on and talk to. But yeah, what are you reading there about Chomsky? So,
Well, we should maybe probably make a video about this, to
yeah,
be
yeah,
honest.
well, exactly. We'll do that. I was gonna say, but
Yeah. We do that. But he did like from 16, he's been in within university atmosphere studying various subjects. But his thesis on his BA was morphonomics of modern Hebrew, so linguistics. But then he has studied philosophy a lot as well at university level and all that. So yeah, it's a
and in
fucking
media
great.
studies and communications, he's probably like he probably has one of like the most famous books and thesis about manufacturing consent.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
I
international
mean,
relations,
yeah,
sociology,
I know.
media studies, all
So
of these stuff.
exactly, that was just my point. Is that in his case, you really see that he's an expert in Sam Harris, perhaps in neuroscience and all that, but he doesn't have anywhere close near any kind of knowledge like that in political science, much less. Whereas
I would
Chomsky,
say,
someone who's like in all these areas, he has some of the highest level of expertise. I mean, it's unreal.
no, I would say though, the all the stuff that Chomsky is expert in share similar qualities, or they are from the same, not field or anything, but they share similar. In my view, this is again a personal view, that social sciences have different set of tools and different way of you have to approach them differently. I think the problem is that he's comes from natural science. Sam Harris
Yeah,
comes
that's
from
a very
natural
good
science.
point. Yeah, it's a very good point. And
The
besides the
empiricism,
linguistic, yeah,
positivism is far more important there. Sorry.
no, 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 you're absolutely right. And even if we just put the linguistic one to the side for a split second, all the other ones are literally media studies, communication, political science, and international
Sociology,
relations, and social.
politics,
Yeah,
philosophy.
all there is. But no, no, that's a very
Yeah,
good point. That's very true.
yeah, I mean that's yeah. I mean again, guys, just that's the only comment I don't like. I'm not in no place to judge anybody. It's just personal
Yeah.
views. Yeah, we don't think we are any better than anyone. So
No, definitely. But
definitely not
okay,
better than Sam Harris.
yeah. And right now, the good thing is nobody sees this video, so they can't judge us back. So at least we're
Yeah,
okay. All right, is that
I
it?
don't
Any
want to come
final
across
words?
as an arrogant
No,
bitch.
same.
Like,
And this is why it's a podcast. In
yeah,
podcast, you just come and chit chat. You can just say whatever is on your
okay.
mind. But okay, all right. Thank you, everybody who watched the video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.
Take care.